So in this session we'll examine the topic of corporate entrepreneurship, which is sometimes also referred to as entrepreneurship or internal entrepreneurship. Now, although almost everyone is familiar with the term entrepreneurship, the same cannot be said for the term entrepreneurship. And entrepreneurship and the entrepreneur have entered the business vocabulary quite recently. And the core difference between entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs is basically the environment in which they work. An entrepreneur is an entrepreneur within a firm who uses entrepreneurial skills without incurring the basic risks associated with those activities. An entrepreneur, on the other hand, demonstrates the same behaviour as the entrepreneur, but in their own business. The corporate entrepreneur gets the security of the regular salary, but they still want to bring ideas forward, and they know that they can impact upon the trajectory of the business even though they do not own that business. Entrepreneurs are basically entrepreneurial thinkers who drive organisational change and are motivated by creating new things. So in terms of learning outcomes, by the end of this session you should be able to firstly define the concept of entrepreneurship and then also identify key characteristics of the entrepreneur. But you should also be able to explain the importance of corporate entrepreneurship for established businesses. And lastly, you should be able to recognise evidence of entrepreneurial behaviour in real organisations. Now, as these definitions show, entrepreneurship is basically entrepreneurship within an existing organisation which involves doing new things and departing from the customary way in order to pursue opportunities. And most established companies find it hard to maintain the initial entrepreneurial spirit that helped them to make it through the initial startup stage. And as a result, they've traditionally faced difficulties in identifying opportunities and turning them into new products. In order to solve this problem, companies need to recruit and support entrepreneurial employees whilst building an entrepreneurial culture which encourages both creativity and innovation. Now, the term entrepreneur was coined in 1978 by management consultant Gifford Pinchot, and it's derived from a combination of intra or internal and entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurs in real terms are usually employees within a company who are assigned a special idea or project and are instructed to develop the project like an entrepreneur would in their own business. An entrepreneur is given the authority and support to create a new product without having to be concerned about whether or not the product will actually become a source of revenue for the company. Unlike an entrepreneur who faces personal risk when a product fails to produce revenue, the entrepreneur will continue to receive a salary even if the product fails to make it to production. However, it's also widely recognised that some entrepreneurs actively work against their own organisation's rules and processes because they have an inbuilt belief that in doing so they are working in the best interests of the company. Now, in an established organisation, the main concern of the management team is often to develop and maintain existing routines in order to maximise the efficiency of existing production and support operations, but this does not encourage entrepreneurship. Now, this simple model suggests that in an ideal situation, the right environmental conditions combine with the right organisational conditions to create a state that encourages and promotes entrepreneurship, leading to improved performance of the firm. And the first factor here to consider is the environment. Now, enterprising organisations tend to actively identify and encourage employees whose business skills and creative abilities make them good candidates to take on entrepreneurial roles within the company, and we'll look at this in more detail later. The next factor to consider is organisation, and for entrepreneurs working within an existing framework offers many advantages, and one of the main benefits of working in a firm is that their organisation is able to provide them with the resources they need to get the job done. This can include human resources, legal support and financial oversight. In addition, entrepreneurship enables professionals to utilise funding from their existing organisation. There's basically no need to raise capital once the project has received a green light. And entrepreneurs also have access to mentors, and they're able to learn from supervisors, managers and others within the company and to utilise them as a valuable resource. Then we have to think about entrepreneurship itself. Now, entrepreneurial organisations develop an internal process that all employees can use to bring ideas to the table and communicate them to the right people within their organisation. And this in turn encourages entrepreneurs to come forward and contribute by thinking about ways to make the business better. New business venturing is a key characteristic of entrepreneurship, since it can result in new business creation within an existing organisation. In large corporations as well as in smaller established firms, new venturing can include the formation of more formally autonomous or semi-autonomous units or of completely new firms. Then we have innovation, and new combinations of resources often lead to new products and services, and it's very common to see evidence of entrepreneurial behaviour that centres around innovation. Then we have to think about strategic renewal, and many entrepreneurs think and behave like owners and make decisions beyond their actual authority, and they are invaluable to the company's ongoing development and ultimate growth. They're often the source of new combinations of resources that result in significant change to an organisation's strategy or structure. And contrary to popular belief, entrepreneurs are not all mavericks or corporate hotshots, and a key part of the success is being able to get others on board by motivating them to work towards and achieve a shared goal. Creative management and diverse approaches to leadership are typical amongst both entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs also often display both intelligence and vision. And intelligence can mean having the right skill sets and tools to complete a project, while vision generally refers to recognising trends and capitalising on emerging opportunities. Successful entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs are able to balance passion and innovation with business acumen. And another key trait of the entrepreneur is adaptability. Both entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs are able to shift direction quickly when problems and challenges arise. We call this agility. Even the most promising plans and strategies can encounter roadblocks. However, being adaptable means responding effectively to any given situation. The entrepreneur exhibits entrepreneurial spirit and is able to recognise problems and can take action fairly quickly to turn a potential problem into a potential opportunity. They demonstrate a commitment to innovation and have an inbuilt belief that there's always a better way of doing things. And often individual entrepreneurs are actually excited by risk and challenge. Now, high levels of confidence and self-esteem also allow them to handle a no or a potentially failed project. Now, Hadzima identifies 7 key characteristics found in successful entrepreneurial employees. The first of these is the ability to deal with risk, and the modern organisation is complex, and the ability to deal with risk and uncertainty and still operate effectively lies at the very heart of corporate entrepreneurship. Then the next factor to consider is being results orientated, and entrepreneurs are can-do people who take ownership of an issue and look at better ways of doing things by challenging the status quo. Another important factor is energy, and generally the entrepreneurial employee consistently generates output that's higher than could be reasonably expected. Effective entrepreneurs are also team players. Entrepreneurial employees recognise how their role contributes to the overall success of the organisation. And another important ability is multitasking, and entrepreneurs are flexible and able to adapt to accept new situations, duties, assignments and responsibilities. And they're also improvement orientated. They're willing to challenge in a positive and constructive way. Now, established businesses often say that they wish their employees were more entrepreneurial. Now, in other words, they want people within an existing established business to display the characteristics and traits associated with traditional entrepreneurs. However, entrepreneurship in organisations is a matter of degree, with different organisations displaying different levels of entrepreneurship. Organisations can be viewed as being on an entrepreneurship spectrum that ranges from less to more entrepreneurial. The intensity of entrepreneurship within an organisation is influenced greatly by the organisational culture, which could be said to be the framework which determines the way in which the organisation conducts its business, treats its employees and customers, and also the wider community. This is influenced by a diverse range of personal and corporate factors such as those we see here. Now, there are many reasons why businesses are not especially entrepreneurial, and these can include factors such as complacency, arrogance, bureaucracy, a short-term outlook, and ineffective reward systems. However, any organisation has the potential to be entrepreneurial, as these statistics show. Now, according to the Global Entrepreneurship Monitor, 94% of entrepreneurs think they have the required skills and knowledge to start a firm of their own. 76% say that fear of failure would not prevent them from starting a business of their own. And 58% of managers are either very willing or extremely willing to support employees who want to capitalise on a new business opportunity within their own company. So how then do entrepreneurs do what they actually do? According to Pinchot, when we look at successful innovation and successful companies, we always find small independent groups of imaginative action takers working to circumvent or even sabotage the formal systems that supposedly manage innovation. These people form underground teams and networks that routinely bootleg company resources or steal company time to work on their own projects. They make things happen while those trying to innovate by the official route are still waiting for permission to begin. Entrepreneurs do incur some risk in that often they are working in direct contravention of the organisation's strategy, although they are doing so in the interest of the organisation. This does have the potential to get them into trouble, as they may be operating out with their official boundaries or beyond their responsibilities and their authority. Entrepreneurs challenge the normal way of doing things, asking a variety of important and critical questions such as the ones we see here. Entrepreneurial processes go on inside an existing firm regardless of its size, and entrepreneurship refers to a whole range of innovative activities and orientations such as developing new products, services or technologies, administrative techniques and strategies. But how can we determine the extent to which an organisation is or isn't entrepreneurial? Paul Byrne's Corporate Entrepreneurship Audit is a set of 125 questions which are designed to provide a diagnostic tool to assess the entrepreneurial orientation of organisational architecture, whilst also make it possible to measure an organisation's architecture against industry best practice. The audit identifies the key internal areas of culture, structure, systems and leadership, whilst also determining an industry or sector benchmark against which the organisation can be measured in these four key areas. The purpose of the Corporate Entrepreneurship Audit is to identify problems and barriers within the organisation and to determine where the organisation should be in terms of its own specific sector. For example, a technology company needs to be dynamic and fast moving in order to respond to the speed of change in that sector, and therefore rigid structures and time management would not be appropriate in this case. Now, tools such as the Corporate Entrepreneurship Audit highlight the fact that simply hiring a few talented individuals and hoping for the best without changing anything about the organisation ultimately won't make a company more innovative or entrepreneurial. To achieve this, companies instead need a plan for professionalising and institutionalising innovation across their organisation, which addresses the key areas of culture, structure, systems and leadership. So this more complex model of entrepreneurship further develops the idea of corporate entrepreneurship, and here we can clearly see the three key dimensions of entrepreneurship, namely corporate venturing, innovation, and strategic renewal. Some companies have fully embraced corporate venturing and entrepreneurship by introducing dedicated research and development departments whose entrepreneurial employees are tasked with exploring ideas that will help the company stay competitive in the marketplace. Other businesses pursue the idea of continuous improvement, a concept borrowed from manufacturing that encourages employees in research, design, sales and production to work together as a closer team. Many successful IT startups foster a culture of entrepreneurship informally by allowing employees to pursue their own technical interests during work hours, a concept known as 20% time, or more formally by sponsoring social events known as hackathons, and these have in the past been very important catalysts for innovation. So now we'll look at some successful examples of each of these three approaches to corporate entrepreneurship. And the first of these is corporate venturing, and here we're going to look at MIT, which is the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Founded in 1861, MIT is a private research university in the United States. MIT is traditionally known for research in education, in science and engineering, and more recently in biology, economics, linguistics and management, and it's a world leader by any measure. MIT is one of the world's top universities and is known to have a very strong entrepreneurial culture. The aggregated revenues of companies founded by MIT alumni would rank as the 11th largest economy in the world, and the key achievements of MIT include 30,000 new companies created, 3 million jobs created and $3 trillion generated in total revenue. Research suggests that this success is due to MIT as an organisation is extremely entrepreneurial because it views innovation as a permanent function of a successful company, just like other business functions. So next we have an example of the innovation approach, and here we're going to look at the Sony PlayStation. Ken Kutaragi, inventor of the Sony PlayStation, battled with Sony in the late 1980s against a culture that thought that the PlayStation was simply a toy and ultimately not worth the effort. Of the key achievements, the most notable of the PlayStation are that this was the first video game console to ship 100 million units. The PlayStation 2 is the best selling home console ever, and the PlayStation 4 is the fastest selling console in history. And also the PlayStation generated additional revenue streams through online services, accessories and other products like online magazines. Now, the research suggests that the success in this case was due to the creativity and the innovation and entrepreneurial qualities of a single employee, Ken Kutaragi, who was clearly of great value to the company, but initially had to overcome a number of challenges. And lastly, we'll look at the example of strategic renewal. One of the most well-known and earliest examples of effective entrepreneurship is the Skunk Works Group. Skunk Works is an official alias for Lockheed Martin's Advanced Development Programs team. The designation Skunk Works is now widely used in business, engineering and technical fields to describe a group within an organisation given a very high degree of autonomy and unhampered by bureaucracy. And these groups are usually tasked with working on advanced or even secret or classified projects. Lockheed Skunk Works is a classic example of entrepreneurship. And with Skunk Works, entrepreneur Kelly Johnson assembled a hand-picked team of Lockheed Aircraft Corporation engineers and manufacturing people in order to rapidly and secretly create the new XP-80 fighter project for the US Army. In this case, there was no space available at the Lockheed facility, so the Skunk Works group actually set up in an old circus tent. And the Skunk Works group used the lack of resources in their favour. Being apart from the rest of the organisation gave the group autonomy, from the bean counters and the traditional by-the-book Lockheed engineering approach. Johnson's entrepreneurship organisation literally reinvented corporate entrepreneurship. The operation was guided by entrepreneurship principles and out-of-the-box unconventional thinking, and this new thinking enabled Johnson and his Skunkworks team to create and effectively operate without a standard manual. They basically broke the rules at every stage and actively challenged the corporate bureaucracy. The old traditional system slowed them down and they worked around it. This group, over the last 75 years, has produced an astonishing array of achievements, which include the first US production jet fighter, the first Mach 3 aircraft, the first stealth aircraft, the first unmanned aerial vehicle, and the first high-altitude reconnaissance aircraft. And the research suggests that their success is due to the fact that the organisation reorganised resources and structures in order to empower entrepreneurial employees and give them the resources, freedom and the space they needed to be highly creative and highly innovative. So hopefully that's provided you with an overview of the nature and extent of corporate entrepreneurship, the characteristics of entrepreneurial employees and organisations, and the challenges that they face. The following exercise provides an example of corporate entrepreneurship in practice. So reflect on the mini case study on Ken Kutaragi and the Sony PlayStation and consider the following questions. Firstly, remembering what we have learned, what barriers did Ken Kutaragi encounter? Secondly, what evidence is there of entrepreneurial behaviour by Kutaragi? And lastly, what were the key factors that allowed him to eventually succeed?